Good morning. I hope that you all are good and doing your studies also. Students, today we are here with the same chapter number 13 of science. The chapter is sound, and this is the third part of this chapter. In our previous part that I have already told you about that how the sound propagates. I have told you that sounds needs a medium for its propagation. In vacuum, sound not travels in vacuum. I have told you all the things in the previous part of this chapter. Now today we are going to cover the rest of the topics that are remaining in this chapter. So we are going to discuss that how do we hear the sound. Now in this part we are going to study about that how do we hear the sound. We are going to study about the structure of the human ear, working of the human ear, and about the noise difference, what is the difference between noise and music, and how we are able to control the noise pollution. So what are the different ways that are used to control the noise pollution and what is noise pollution? So these things that we are going to discuss in this chapter one by one. So let's start with the first topic of this part of this chapter, that is how do we hear the sound. We hear the sound through our ears. We are knowing well that ear is a sense organ which help us in hearing the sound. So we hear the sound through the ears. Now we are going to discuss about the structure of the ear. That's you have seen that the shape of the outer part of the ear which we see outside the head is like a funnel. That outer part of the ear is commonly known as pinna, and it is attached to about 2 to 3 centimeter long passage, and that passage is known as ear canal. So this is about the structure of the ear. So the outer part of the ear which we are able to see outside the head is like a funnel. That outer part of the ear is known as pinna, and it is attached to 2 to 3 centimeter long passage, and that passage is known as ear canal. So at the end of the ear canal there is a thin elastic circular membrane, and that membrane is known as eardrum, is stressed tightly. There are 3 small delicate bones are also found in our ear. That 3 small delicate bones are called hammer, anvil and stirrup. And these 3 bones, that is hammer, anvil and stirrup, are found in the middle part of the ear, which are linked to one another. And these 3 bones, these 3 small bones are linked with each other. So at the one end of the hammer that touches the eardrum, and the other end is connected to the second bone, anvil. The other end of the anvil is connected to the third bone, and that third bone is known as stirrup. And the free ends of the stirrup touches the membrane over the oval window. The inner part of the ear has a coil tube, and that coil tube is known as cochlea. One end of the cochlea is connected to the middle part of the ear through the elastic membrane over the oval window, and that cochlea is filled with a liquid. That liquid that is present in cochlea contains nerve cells which are sensitive to the sound, and that nerve cells are sensitive to the sound. Other end of the cochlea is connected to the auditory nerve, and that auditory nerve which goes to the brain. So this is about the structure of the ear that I have told you. I have told you that the outer part of the ear that can be seen easily, that is outside the head, is known as pinna, and that pinna is attached to 2 to 3 centimeter long passage. That passage is known as ear canal, and at the end of the ear canal there is a thin elastic circular membrane. That membrane is known as eardrum, and that eardrum is in middle part of the ear that contains the 3 small delicate bones. The name of that bones are hammer, anvil and stirrup, that is found in the middle part of the ear and which are linked to one another. So I have told you that hammer touches the eardrum and its other end is connected to the second bone, So that hammer that touches the eardrum and its other end is connected to the second bone, and that second bone is anvil, and the another end of the anvil is connected to the third bone that is known as stirrup. So these three bones are connected to each other like this way, and the free ends of the stirrup is touches to the membrane over the oval window. So the inner part of the ear, that inner part of the ear also contains a coil tube, and that coil tube is known as cochlea, and this cochlea is connected to the middle part of the ear through the elastic membrane over the oval window. That cochlea is mainly filled with a liquid, and that liquid that contains the nerve cells which are sensitive to the sound. The other end of the cochlea is connected to the auditory nerve which goes to the brain. So that gives the signals to the brain. So these three bones in the middle part of the ear acts like a system of levers and amplify, and they are used to amplify the sound vibration that is coming from the eardrum before passing them to the inner part of the cochlea. So before passing them to the inner part of the ear, that is to the cochlea, these bones acts like a lever system, and they helps to amplify the sound vibration that is coming from the eardrum. Now we are going to describe the working of the ear. So here there is one diagram that is given to you. This is the structure of the ear. Now we are going to know about that, how the ear works. What is the working of the ear? So the sound waves that is coming from the sound producing body, that is mainly connected by the pinna because it is the outer part of the ear, and these sound waves passes through the ear canal, and after that it gets passed to the ear canal, and finally that ear canal is attached to a stressed membrane. That membrane is known as, that stressed circular membrane is known as eardrum, and when the sound waves falls on the eardrum, after that it falls on the eardrum starts vibrating back and forth repeatedly. The vibrating eardrum causes the small bones, that bone that is attached to the eardrum, the name of that bone is hammer. So that's why that hammer also starts vibrating. So it makes the hammer to vibrate, and from the hammer these vibrations are passed to the second bone that is anvil, and then to the third bone, that third bone is the stirrup. That I have already told you that these three bones are linked with each other. So by this way these vibration is passed from one bone to the another bone like this way, and the vibrating stirrup strikes on the membrane of the oval window and passes the amplified vibration to the liquid in the cochlea. I have already told you that inner part of the ear that contains liquid, so that's why this amplified vibrations passes to the liquid in the cochlea like this way, and due to this the liquid in the cochlea begins to vibrate. That liquid also starts vibrating, and this vibrating liquid of the cochlea sets up the electrical impulses in the nerve cells present in it. These electrical impulses are then carried by the auditory nerve to the brain. And how these electrical impulses are carried? These are carried by the auditory nerve to the brain, and the brain interprets these electrical impulses as sound, and we get the sensation of hearing. So our ear works like this way, and this is the working of the ear. So I have told you that how the ear works. Now we are going to study about that what is amplitude, what is time period, frequency of vibration. So before that we just know about that what is pendulum. So just look at here, there is one diagram, and this is the diagram of a simple pendulum. This simple pendulum is mainly consists of a string, a stressed string, and at the end of its one string it is attached, its one end is attached to a part, and its second end that contains a small ball, and that small ball is known as bob. So here in this diagram there are the three positions that is shown to you. One is the middle position and two are the extreme position. So A and B are the extreme position, and middle one, that is the rest position of the bob, is known as the mean position, or it is at the middle. So this is the structure of the simple pendulum. Now we are going to know about that what is oscillatory motion. So just know about that what is oscillatory motion. So here we have just I'm going to give you one example that we all have seen a swing or jhula in children's park, and if we displace over the lower end of the swing to one side and release it, then the swing starts moving backwards and forwards repeatedly. We have seen this, though the top end of the swing remains fixed at same position, but the lower end of the swing keeps on moving backwards and forward again and again. So this alternate backward and forward motion is also called back and forth motion or to or fro motion, and the motion of a swing is actually an example of vibration or oscillation. So this vibration is commonly known as oscillation or vibration. So this back and forth motion, or we can say to or fro motion, is known as oscillation or vibration. So this repeated back and forth motion is known as vibration, or we can say oscillation. So when an object moves back and forth continuously, we say that it is making vibration. When we say that object is vibrating, the object is vibrating when it moves back and forth continuously. So we can say that object is vibrating. So when a swing moves back and forth repeatedly, we say that the swing is making vibration or oscillation. Now, we are going to give you an example of a simple pendulum to understand the meaning of the vibration. We are going to make you understand about the working of the simple pendulum. So the simple pendulum can be made by tying about 1 meter long thread of a small metal from a small metal ball and suspending it from a height that is shown to you in the figure that is given to you here. A small metal ball of a pendulum is commonly known as bob, and when the pendulum is at rest means it is not vibrating, then the bob is in the normal position or in the central position. So if we displace the bob to the left side of the position, there is a central position here. That central position is the B position, and that is known as the mean position. And when we displace it to the left hand side of its mean position, that is to the A position, that A position is known as the extreme position. So it starts vibrating like a swing. So it goes to the right hand side. There is the right hand side, that position is also known as the extreme position, and that is the position C. So it starts vibrating and it moves from A to B and then B to C. So we can say that pendulum starts vibrating or it starts oscillating. So this back and forth motion is commonly known as vibration or oscillation. Now every vibration or oscillation has three characteristics. That three characteristic is what? Amplitude, time period and frequency. Now we are going to study about that what is amplitude, what is time period and what is frequency one by one. So let's know about that what is time period, what is amplitude and what is frequency. Now here we are going to know about that what is amplitude. When a simple pendulum vibrates, its bob goes to the equal distances on either side of its central position. As I have told you about the oscillation of the simple pendulum, so when the bob is its rest position, that rest position is known as the central or mean position, and when we displace it to the left hand side, that is already given to you, that's left hand side is the A position. So it starts vibrating and it goes to the central position and then to the position that is found at its right hand side, that is known as the B position. So it starts vibrating like this way. So we have seen that it covers the equal distance on either side of its central position. So the pendulum bobs goes equal distances AB and AC from its central position. So the maximum distance to which the bobs of a vibrating pendulum goes from its central position is commonly known as the amplitude of vibration or amplitude of oscillation. So the maximum displacement of a vibrating object from its central position is commonly known as amplitude of vibration. So how we can define that? What is amplitude of vibration? The maximum displacement of a vibrating object from its central position is known as the amplitude of vibration. Or in other words, we can say that the maximum displacement of an oscillating object from its central position is known as amplitude of vibration. The amplitude tells us how far the vibrating object is displaced from its central position, and this amplitude mainly tells us about that how far the vibrating object is displaced from its central position. If we can increase the amplitude of vibration of a simple pendulum by raising the height from which the pendulum bob is initially released, we can decrease the amplitude of vibration by releasing the pendulum of the bob from the smaller height. So we can increase or decrease the amplitude of vibration like this way. So this I have told you about that what is amplitude. What is amplitude of vibration. Now we are going to know about that what is time period. So let's know about that what is time period. We have already seen that when we release the bob initially from its left hand side, it comes to the central position, and that goes to the position that is on the right hand side. So it starts vibrating, or we can say it starts its vibration, and it performs its to and fro motion, means forward and backward motion. So we can say that bob starts vibrating. So this thing that I have already told you. So one complete to and fro motion of a pendulum bob is called the one vibration, or we can say the one oscillation. So how we can define that one oscillation or one vibration? One complete to and fro motion of a pendulum bob is commonly known as one vibration or one oscillation. So the time that is taken by the pendulum bob to complete one vibration or one oscillation, the time that is taken by the bob to complete its one oscillation or one vibration is commonly known as time period of the pendulum. So the time that is taken by the vibrating object to complete one vibration is called time period, or in other words we can say that the time that is taken by the oscillating object to complete one oscillation is commonly known as time period. And we can measure the time period, that the unit that is used for measuring the time period is second. So the time that is taken by the one vibration or one oscillation of a simple pendulum is very short, hence it cannot be measured accurately. So in order to find the time that is taken by the one vibration or time period, we measure the time that is taken by large number of vibration and dividing the total time by total number of vibration, we will get the time for one vibration or time period of the pendulum. For example, if we can measure the time for say 20 vibration of pendulum by using a stopwatch, so now dividing the time by 20, we will by dividing the time by 20 will give us the time taken by one vibration. That is, it will give us the time period of vibration of pendulum. For a given pendulum, the time period is same every time. The time period of a pendulum depends only on the length of the pendulum. It does not depend upon the amplitude of the vibrations. Now this is about the time period that I have told you. Now we are going to know about that what is frequency of vibration. So the number of vibration that is made per second by a vibrating body is called the frequency of vibration. Per second means in 1 second. Per second means in 1 second. So in 1 second, the number of the vibration that is done by the vibrating body in 1 second is known as frequency. So the number of vibration that is made in 1 second is commonly known as frequency of vibration, or in other words we can say that the number of oscillation made in 1 second is known as frequency of oscillation. So the unit that is used for measuring the frequency is what? That unit is the hertz, that is denoted by capital H and small z, and that is the unit that is used to measure the frequency of vibration. So when the object makes one vibration per second or one oscillation per second, its frequency is 1 Hertz. It means that that object is completing its one vibration in 1 second. So its frequency is 1 Hertz. If the object makes 10 vibration per second, its frequency is 10 Hertz. So the frequency actually tells us that how fast the vibrating object repeats its motion. To find the frequency of simple pendulum, we measure the time taken by the pendulum to make a large number of vibrations, and dividing the number of vibrations by the time taken, we get the number of vibrations made in 1 second. So I have told you about that. What is frequency? Frequency means the time that is taken when an object makes one vibration per second. Per second means in 1 second. In 1 second, if the object will do the one vibration in 1 second, it means that its frequency is 1 Hertz. So frequency means the number of vibration that is made per second by the vibrating object is commonly known as frequency of vibration, and its unit is measured in unit, and that unit that is used to measure the frequency is Hertz, that is denoted by capital H, small z. So this is about the frequency that I have told you. Now I am going to tell you about what is the relation between the time period and frequency. We have just studied that the time period is the time that is required to make one vibration, and frequency is the number of vibration per second. I have told you that what is time period. Time period means the time that is taken by the vibrating. The time means the time that is taken by the vibrating object to complete its one vibration is known as time period. And I have told you that what is frequency. Frequency means number of vibration made in 1 second. So we are going to know about that. What is the relation between time period and frequency? Time period is equal to the reciprocal, or we can say the inverse of frequency. So the time period is the reciprocal. Time period is equal to the reciprocal or the inverse of frequency. Now this is the relation between the time period and frequency that I have told you. So what is the relation? Relation between the time period and frequency is that time period is equal to the reciprocal or the inverse of frequency. So this is about the relation between the time period and the frequency. As an amplitude that is given to you in this diagram, in a sound wave, the maximum displacement associated with the particle constituting a wave is called its amplitude. Means the maximum displacement that is done by the vibrating particle from its mean position is known as amplitude, and that amplitude is commonly represented by capital A, and its SI unit is meter. Now time period, I have told you about that. What is time period? The time that is taken by the object or the particle of the medium for completing one oscillation or one vibration is known as time period. It is denoted by capital T, and its SI unit is second. So the time period is equal to time divided by number of oscillation or vibration. It means that the time that is taken by the vibrating object to complete its one vibration is commonly known as time period. Now loudness and pitch. Now we are going to know about that. What is loudness and what is pitch? So the sound are produced. We have already known that the sound is produced by the vibrating object. When any object vibrates, it starts producing the sound. So the sound is produced by the vibrating object. If more energy is supplied to an object by plucking it or hitting it more strongly, then the object will vibrate with a greater amplitude. And when it starts vibrating with a greater amplitude, it produces a louder sound. So the loudness of the sound depends on the amplitude of vibration. So we can say that the loudness of a sound mainly depends upon the amplitude of the vibration. Greater is the amplitude of the vibration, louder the sound will be. For example, when a sitar string is plucked lightly, then it vibrates with a small amplitude and produces a faint sound, or we can say the feeble sound. On the other hand, when a sitar string is plucked hard, it starts vibrate with a large amplitude and produce a very loud sound. So we can say that the loudness of the sound depends on the amplitude of vibration. So when the amplitude of the vibration is large, in that case loudness is large, and when the amplitude of the vibration is small, in that case loudness is loudness is also small. So this is the relation between the loudness and the amplitude of the vibration. So I have told you about that, what is loudness, and what is the relation between the loudness and the amplitude of the vibration. So the loudness of a sound is directly proportional to the square of the amplitude of the vibration. So we can say that it is directly proportional to the square of the amplitude of the vibration, that is given to you in this slide. It is directly proportional to the square of the amplitude of the vibration. It means that if the amplitude of the vibration is doubled, means 2 times, then the loudness will become 4 times. Then the loudness becomes 4 times, and if the amplitude of the vibration is halved, then the loudness will become 1/4. So this is the relation between the amplitude of the vibration and the loudness of the sound. So loudness of the sound is commonly expressed in unit. That unit is decibel. The symbol of the decimal is small d and capital B. So the loudness of sound is measured in decibel. The decibel is the unit in which the loudness of the sound is measured. There is a following table that is given to you that gives us different types of loudness of sound that is coming from the various sources. Normal breathing 10 decibel, soft whisper at 5 meter 30 decibel, normal conversation 60 decibel sound, busy traffic 70 decibel, average factory 80 decibel. So this following table that gives you the loudness of the sound that is coming from the various sources. Pitch or shrillness. Now we are going to know about that, what is pitch and what is shrillness. Pitch is what? Pitch is the characteristic of sound. Pitch is the characteristic of sound by which we can distinguish between the different sound of the same loudness. If there are different sound of the same loudness, we can distinguish it from one another with the help of the pitch, and that pitch is the characteristic of the sound. So we can distinguish between the man voice and the woman voice even without seeing them. This is because the man voice and the woman voice differ in their pitch. Pitch is commonly known as shrillness. A man voice is flat having low pitch, whereas a woman voice is shrill having high pitch. The pitch of sound depends on the frequency of vibration of the sound producing object. In fact, the pitch of sound is directly proportional to the frequency. The pitch of the sound is directly proportional to its frequency. If the frequency of vibration is low, the sound produced has a low pitch. On the other hand, if the frequency of vibration is high, the sound produced has a high pitch. So the man voice have the lower frequency, so it has low pitch, and the woman voice have the high frequency, so it has the high pitch. So we can say that the pitch is directly proportional to the frequency of vibration. A voice of small baby has higher frequency than the voice of even a woman, so the pitch of baby's voice is higher than the woman. Thus, the sound of low frequency are said to have low pitch, while the sound of high frequency are said to have the high pitch. So this is the relation between the pitch and the frequency of vibration. So we can say that pitch is directly proportional to the frequency of vibration. If the frequency of vibration is high, in that case pitch is high, and if the frequency of vibration is low, in that case the pitch is low. And what is pitch? Pitch is the characteristic of the sound. With the help of that, we are able to distinguish between the loudness or the same. We are able to distinguish between the different sound of the same loudness. Now, this is the example. Now we are going to know about that audible and inaudible sound. So just we are going to know about that, what is audible sound and what is inaudible sound. Whenever an object vibrates, it starts producing sound. For example, when a simple pendulum vibrates, a sound is produced. But the sound produced by the vibrating simple pendulum is not heard by us. This is because the frequency of vibration of simple pendulum is very low, and our ears cannot hear the sound of such low frequency. Such low frequency that sound are not heard to us and that type of sound is known as inaudible sound, means that which cannot be heard by us. For example, from this example we just get the conclusion that all the vibrating objects do not produce the audible sound. So we can say that all the vibrating objects are not able to produce the audible sound. Audible sound means the sound that we can hear. Inaudible sound means the sound that cannot be heard to us. So an object must vibrate at the rate of at least 20 times per second is able to produce a audible sound. If the object vibrates at the rate of 20 times per second, that sound is heard to us, and that sound is known as the audible sound. In other words, the object must vibrate with frequency of at least 20 Hz to be able to produce the audible sound. The sound having too low frequency, which cannot be heard by the human ear, is commonly known as infrasonic sound. Thus, the sound of frequency less than 20 Hz is known as infrasonic sounds. The infrasonic sound cannot be heard by the human beings. And if the frequency of sound is less than 20 Hz, it cannot be heard to us. If the frequency of sound is more than 20,000 Hz, even it cannot be heard by us. The human ear can hear the sound which have the frequency between 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz, and this is the range of the audible frequency of sound for the human hearing is 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz. So what is the range of audible frequency of sound for the human being? This is 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz. So this means that lower the limit of frequency of the human sound is 20 Hz and upper limit of the frequency of the human hearing is 20,000 Hz. Now the sound having too high frequency, which cannot be heard by the human ear, is known as ultrasonic sound. Ultrasonic sound, the sounds of frequency greater than 20,000 Hz, that type of sound is known as ultrasonic sounds. Human beings can neither produce ultrasonic sound nor can they hear the ultrasonic sound. The sound having too high frequency, greater than 20,000 Hz, which can be heard by the human beings, is also called just ultrasound. For example, the sound of frequency 1 lakh Hz is an ultrasound. Due to this very high frequency, ultrasound has a greater penetrating power than ordinary sound. So due to its high frequency, it has a greater penetrating power than the ordinary sound. And this ultrasound is used as diagnostic tool in medical science to investigate inside the human body. Ultrasound is also used to study the growth of the fetus developing baby inside the mother's womb. Ultrasound is used in the treatment of muscular pain and disease called arthritis. So these are the uses of the ultrasound. And due to its high penetrating power, this high penetrating power is mainly due to its high frequency. Now, we are going to know about that what is the difference between the noise and music, and what are the problems due to the noise pollution, and what is noise pollution. So these things that we are going to discuss here, we hear the different types of sounds in our daily life. Some of these sounds are unpleasant to hear, whereas other sounds are pleasant to hear. So the unpleasant sound around us is commonly known as noise. Noise is produced by the irregular vibration of a sound producing source. So for example, there are some examples here that produce the noise pollution. For example, running of mixer grinder in the kitchen produces noise, blowing of horns of motor vehicles, bursting of crackers produces noise, barking of dogs produces noise. There are various sounds coming from a construction site where the building is under the construction is also produces noise. In classroom, all the students start talking together loudly, the sound thus produced will be called the noise. So we do not enjoy hearing the unpleasant sound of noise. A noisy sound causes the discomfort to the ears. So the sounds which are pleasant to hear is known as musical sound, or we can say music, and the sound which are unpleasant to us is commonly known as noise. So this is the difference between noise and music. Musical sounds are produced by the regular vibration, while the noise is produced by the irregular vibration of sound producing source. So some of the musical instruments that produces the musical sound, the string of the sitar make regular vibration, so the sitar produces the musical sound. The sound that is produced by the harmonium, also a musical sound. In fact, all the musical instruments like sitar, veena, guitar, violin, piano produce the musical sound. If, however, a musical sound becomes too loud, it would become noise. But when it becomes too loud, it would become noise. Thus, the music can sometimes becomes noise. So this is the difference between the noise and music. Now we are going to know about that what is noise pollution. As I have told you about that what is noise, that unpleasant loud sound is commonly known as noise. The sound that are loud and that are unnecessary is commonly known as noise. The presence of loud or unwanted disturbing sound in our environment causes a pollution, and that pollution is known as noise pollution. There are some major sources of the noise pollution in our environment around us. That sources are as follows. For example, the motor vehicles like car, buses, trucks running on the road produces the noise pollution by blowing the horns and sound of their engines. Bursting of cracker produces the noise pollution. Various machines in the factories make loud sound that produces the noise pollution. Takeoff and landing of flying aeroplane produces noise pollution. Playing of loudspeaker bands in the marriages and the social function also causes the noise pollution. So these are the different sources from where the noise pollution is produced. The major sources of noise pollution in homes are the loud playing radio, stereo system, television produces noise pollution. Some kitchen appliances like mixer and grinder produces noise pollution. Use of desert coolers and air conditioner produces noise pollution. So these are the major sources of the noise pollution in homes. Now, what are the harms due to this noise pollution? This excessive loud noise is harm to us. The presence of excessive noise in our surrounding may cause the different health problems. So the various harms of the noise pollution are as follows. Loud noise can cause the great harm to the ears. Constant loud noise reduces the hearing power of our ears. The loud noise can damage the eardrum permanently, causes deafness. Loud noise can cause a person to lose the concentration in its work or studies. Loud noise can cause hypertension or high blood pressure. Loud noise can cause the irritation and headache. Loud noise during the night time disturbs our sleep. Continued lack of sleep is bad for health. So these are the different harms that is produced by the noise pollution. Now we are going to know about that what are the measures that are used to control the noise pollution. There are different measures that we can use to control the noise pollution, which are as follows. We should not play the radio, stereo system, television too loudly. The horns of the motor vehicles should not be blown unnecessarily. Bursting of crackers should be avoided. Noise-making factories, airports should be shifted away from the residential areas of the cities. Loudspeakers should be played at low volume during marriages and social functions. Trees should be planted along the roads around the buildings to reduce the noise pollution from the roads and other activities from reaching the resident of the areas. So these are the different measures that we can apply in order to reduce in order to control the noise pollution. So these things that I have already told you, that what are the different measures that are used to control the noise pollution. So awareness campaign and noisy operation should be done to make the people aware about the harmful effects of the noise pollution. This thing also we can do in order to control the noise pollution. So students, I have told you about all the topics that is given in this chapter. Today I have covered all the topics that are given in this chapter. So you must revise all the topics that I have told you today and try to complete the exercises yourself and do the revision also. So students, thank you.